Okay, good evening. Welcome to the December 12th, 2023 meeting of the Finance Committee. It is 6 o'clock p.m. We have a quorum present. Our agenda tonight will be to approve any meeting minutes that are available. We have meeting minutes that Karen previously sent out from our last meeting on October 2nd. We will then have a discussion with Chief Jenkins and Chief Herron around an intermunicipal agreement for regional dispatch with Holbrook. We'll be reviewing the timeline for the fiscal 25 budget preparation, discuss budget guidance for 25, assign department liaisons for 25, and then any other topics that may come up that were not anticipated at the time of the agenda. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes Karen shared from Monday, October 2nd.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Dave.
A second.
Second by George. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion approves. Thank you. And next, the Chiefs, if you want to come up and...
Sure. I'm just gonna give you a little handout here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll let you start off since it's been your baby. All right.
Ready?
We're ready. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep, sorry.
So, no, it's okay. So I have been trying to go regional dispatch since, Charlie, help me out, 2014, we started with something like that. 2013, 14, 15, somewhere around there, a long time ago. There was, I think, 9 towns in Plymouth County. We met in Halifax Town Hall, like the first Tuesday of every month for quite some time. We, pretty much at the time, police did not want to regionalize, fire did. And there's valid points for both of them, but I'm not going to speak for police side, obviously. But for fire side, it made sense because, you know, our stations usually go dark anyways, meaning we will use all available personnel and leave. That's how East Bridgewater has done it since I started back in 1991. There was only 3 people on a shift, and if you had a house fire or whatever, all 3 left and the station was empty until recall people came in. That also meant that the phones weren't getting answered, and if anyone came in, nobody was there. God forbid they were having a heart attack, and you found them, you know, on the floor when you came in on recall. So after this meeting with these 9 towns and state 911, the 3 Bridgewaters decided they would try to get a grant to do a regional secondary PSAP. So the police department is the primary PSAP. The secondary PSAP is what the fire department was, meaning the police answer. If it's a fire or medical, they send it down to the police, to the secondary PSAP. So what we were gonna do is have a secondary PSAP for the 3 Bridgewater fire departments. We made the grant, we were awarded the grant back in 2015-ish. It was like a $3.1 million grant. They gave us like $187,000 to do feasibility studies, architectural drawings, project manager, yada, yada, yada. That was stopped in its tracks, and we never regionalized. Though we did get the grant and we could have moved forward, it just didn't come to fruition. Fast forward a few years, when we are getting busier and busier, I believe Scott Allen became chief, and we reached out and we had discussions about hiring civilian dispatchers, more civilian dispatchers. The police had already had some, to do the fire side and house them at the police department, which is where the primary PSAP is anyways. Made sense. We still go dark. We still go dark to this day. And even if we went to Holbrook, or any regional dispatch, we would still go dark. The only caveat is there would actually be a camera and a phone in the foyer. If no one was there and somebody walked in with a problem, they would pick up a phone and have a camera and talk to somebody at the Holbrook Regional Center. We do have a phone there now that rings to the police, but there is no camera. Well, there is a camera, but not quite like you would expect it to be through a regional dispatch center. Excuse me. So, that worked for a few years. It's still working now. That there is a problem maintaining sometimes personnel. That I will let Chief Jenkins speak to. But I have known the director of the Holbrook Regional Emergency Communications Center, or HREC, for 25, 30 years, Steve Hook. Nice guy, good guy, knows his thing, built the entire Norfolk County Fire Radio Network from nothing. They had no county network, now they do. And he did that on his own pretty much with, obviously funding from various sources. And then he opened up, started this quasi-regional center quite a few years ago, and more towns began to join, where now I forget how many have joined. There's
They're up to 19 right
Nine.
now, and they just taken on 2 more.
19, not just municipalities, but police or fire departments.
Combined.
So how many municipalities, I'm not sure, but they have 19 agencies they dispatch for. I think from here, I'll turn it over to you for the personnel and part of it.
Thank you for having us tonight. Just to touch on this a little bit, the reason why we're going this direction, or would like to go in this direction. We took over the civilian dispatches, like the chief had mentioned. I primarily have been overseeing that, through my deputy chief days and now the chief days. And it's worked out pretty good for the most part, but the biggest problem is recruitment. I mean, that's one of the things is recruitment. And we've had a high turnover due to a lot of the people that initially were hired were interns, which worked out good, but they're looking for stepping stones. So we'd put time, money, resources into training people for 6 months to a year, and they'd leave. So there's been a constant turnover. So realistically, the biggest problem has been recruitment. And with regionalization, it's just, we took a tour of the HREC, which they just, the facility they did was approximately $3.3 million they just did. It's over in Holbrook. It's beautiful. If anybody ever wants to take a tour, I'm sure they'd love to have you. They just recently got $17 million more dollars in 911 grant money. How with the 911 grant money, currently we get the 911 grant money at the PD. It helps us to train our officers and dispatchers, et cetera, to handle the calls. So what would happen is when you go regionalization, what happens is they get the grant money, and that's the direction the states are going in. They're encouraging the regionalization, so that's why they just got 17 more million. I put some bullet points down here, and I'm just kind of refer to that. Just why regionalize. If you look at the facility, they're properly designed and implemented. Regionalization of emergency communications will improve services for residents and working conditions for employees, and it can reduce risks in long-term costs. You talk about the long-term cost, just alone and going there, where they get the grant money, they're encouraged to go out and pursue police departments and fire departments, public safety. So in looking at that, just from them acquiring our PSAP, our fire dispatch and police dispatch, over a 5-year period, we could save approximately $1.2 million. Currently, if you look at our current dispatch budget, we're like in the 350 range, but they just did negotiate a recent contract, so that could be a little bit off, but Charlie, I know Charlie can maybe touch more on that. But the cost savings over 5 years, like I said, if you look at that first page, it would be $1.2 million. The reason being is they're encouraged they're using their grant money that they're getting, and they're gonna take over our services for those first 3 years for nothing. The 4th year, you're looking at, approximately 50%, and the 5th year, 25%. 6th year, obviously, it's gonna level out. And then, I can touch on that. They have like a 3% increase. They've normally had a 3% increase, so you'd be looking at a 3% increase in that 264 approximately for the 6th year, which, give or take, is still about what we're at now. obviously, as a part of that, we'd be losing dispatches. With the facility over there, they're constantly hiring, so it's not like our dispatchers would be without jobs. They'd have the opportunity to go over there as well and become a part of the HREC if they met their standards. And actually, their rate of pay is quite higher than what we can offer at this moment as well. So it's not like we'd be displacing any civilian dispatches either. And touching on that, I mean, that would affect some of the, how we'd have to handle with police departments. If you look at it, similar-sized towns with sworn personnel population that have gone to the regional, if you look at right at the top, Rockland, similar-sized town, they just recently went. Whitman, Holbrook, Abington, Hanson, West Bridgewater, they're not on it, Pembroke, but the ones where I put next to it, those are regionals, those are HREC, where we would go. Hanson, they went to the Rock, which is down in, it's another regional communication center. So, but the difference would be is you do have walk-ins, so I mean, we would have to utilize some of our offices to take the walk-ins and the calls, et cetera. Right now, we have civilian dispatchers on during the day. We have one that handles police calls, 911s. The other one handles fire calls, 911s. That's on our 8 to 4 shift, our 4 to midnight shift. In the midnight shift, we only have one dispatcher that can handle both just because the volume of calls. We do have a numerous amount of walk-ins though, so as walk-ins come in, the police side they'll just, they'll either call a supervisor or call in the cruiser, take a report. You still have a lot of walk-in traffic. I mean, looking at us and the fire calls alone, it would require to have somebody in the station. So what, Rockland, Whitman, Holbrook, Abington, a lot of them, they do have officers that sit the desk. And going back prior to having civilian dispatches, that's the way we do it. That's the way Bridgewater does it right now in a lot of other towns. So, but the thing is, we would save the cost savings over 5 years. I mean, some of that money, we would be looking, for me to support it as well, we would need to obviously get back full capacity, hire, some officers as well. But the cost savings would offset that. I mean, it wouldn't be the total cost savings, but it'd be some of it to put more officers and possibly firefighters on. Just to go back to the benefits, these are just a recent study included 161 interviews with chiefs from the police and fire side, town managers, mayors, police officers, firefighters, and dispatchers in 34 municipalities in Massachusetts. The top 5 benefits they cited in being a regionalization is more effective call taking and dispatching services, more dispatch personnel for major events and surge of 911 calls, standardization of protocols, cost savings, and enhanced mutual aid. And like I said, it's the trend that, the state 911 money is going toward regionalization. So we wouldn't have to oversee this 911 grants that right now that my department, we oversee the 911 grants, obviously with the assistance of the accountant and the treasurer in town. But that's currently where we're at. And looking at it, it's a win-win. It's more professional over there, and the cost savings we could, accumulate over the next 5 years would be, I think, beneficial in making the department run more proficient in that sense.
So the $356 cost, is that offset right now by funding from the state and grants? Did I misunderstand that earlier? You had mentioned the money we get now would go to them?
The money that we get now, we get some 911 money now. It doesn't pay the salaries, but it pays training. So to train to become the civilian dispatchers, they got to be certified through APCO, EMD, and all these certifications beyond one, which is Mass 911. That's paid through the grants. So you got to pay them to go to the classes and the overtime. Our officers as well, they have to be trained on that as well in case there's an incident where they can jump right on the desk. Right now, they don't sit the desk. I mean, they used to, but with the civilian dispatchers, they don't. But we have to keep them, their ability to answer calls if needed, if there was ever an incident. So all that 911 money right now currently goes towards keeping our officers and civilian dispatchers properly trained. And with the grant, you can get, if we need dispatcher chairs or headsets, the 911 grant, they'll pay for equipment as well. Things like that. It doesn't pay their salaries.
So on the first page where it has the state's anticipated contribution, is that a higher amount because we would go to regionalized? Or is that what we receive today?
That's what they get from the state.
So by us relinquishing our 911 PSAP and having it go regional, State 911 has a 5-year plan that they incorporated a few years ago, where the first 3 years, they pay 100% of the costs. So that number that you're looking at, that 312,966 for the first year, that just covers like the costs for the dispatchers, the manpower. What's not included in that is any upgrades to equipment or anything else that we may require that the state 911 will pay for.
In addition to.
It won't cost us a dime. And that will last forever, as long as we're part of regional. I'm
Not
not
to
gonna s-
interrupt, so what they do is what they needed from us, from the fire chief and I, was we gave them our call volume, our amount of calls, et cetera. They do an assessment. They have a formula. So based on our call volume, that's what their proposed assessment fee would be. So in addition, so out of that money from their state grant money, they're gonna get 312 back from the 911 grant, so to offset the cost of what it's gonna take their 911 center, regional center, to answer our calls. So based on their formula, that's how they come up with that fee. So, and that fee is being paid by the state 911 grant. So by them taking over regionalization, we wouldn't be able to apply for the grant anymore, the 911 grant, for the training and the hardware, equipment, et cetera. And like the chief said, not to interrupt, but in addition to all this, they'll come in, they make an assessment, so any of our infrastructure, our radios, anything that's not up to their regionalized standards, that 17 million they got over and above is to come in and give us money, free money for equipment. Not free money, but grant money that they got from the state in addition to this. So there'll be, in addition to this cost savings, we'll be getting our infrastructure upgraded in certain areas by their grant money.
If you look at the projections over the 5 years, that the 6th year when the town would own the whole 100%, going with their 3%, it would be about $362,814. If you take what our current dispatch budget is today, FY '24, and you add the 3% over the 6 years, it would be $425,000. If we use, comparable percentages as to Holbrook, ours is still gonna be, like $69,000 or $70,000 more than what it would be to go regional. Lost my train of thought. Oh, and that, so when the town owes the full 100%, that also falls in fiscal year 30. I know that's a big year because, well, some of us might not be here, but our Plymouth County retirement assessment is gonna drop considerably, either, and I don't remember if it's FY '29 or FY '30. So it's not like we're gonna have to, oh my, where are we gonna come up with this money? The money should be there anyways, just by not having to pay Plymouth County. I mean, we would be paying this anyways. I believe
Right.
Charlie's plan was to budget for this no matter what, always have it in the budget and just go with that, so we don't get hit with that, that massive egg in a few years when we have to stop paying for it, which makes sense.
Right.
Which is gonna level out year 6.
So does the fact that the dispatch group has unionized, does that have any negative impact on the town if we were to go to regional? Like, can we just say we're done, or is there some?
Well, we're still having to negotiate a contract with the current dispatchers. Obviously, they're aware that we are planning on moving on. Given that there were challenges of retaining, you may need to do certain things without, we've got, public audience, and I'm not gonna go into the details unless we go into exec. But you might have to do certain things you might not otherwise normally do with a contract. But it's a limited time basis, in the sense of, once we're moved on, we don't have to retain those employees, for instance.
We'd have no more civilian dispatches once we went regional.
So what would be, you had mentioned that you'd need to hire additional officers to cover the desk shifts. How many would that be, and what's the cost associated with that?
I do have some of that, those numbers I can get you at a later time, but there's a few different options and scenarios. But just, otherwise it'd be overtime issues. At least 1 to 2 officers, I would be looking at. And your average cost per officer is approximately, when you factor in benefits and everything, starting pay is like anywhere from 75 to 100 per officer, on an estimate. I mean, 75 is probably but it depends on who you end up hiring with degrees, et cetera, because it affects that in some way if they have their degrees based on the education incentive. So technically, you'd be looking at least 1 to 2 officers. We could do it at the moment. Right now, I'm doing it, but what I have to do is I had to move some shifts around, and I did, to fill in some shifts right now. The reason we have something going on right now as well with filling some shifts with officers on the desk. We've had to do that recently because we have a dispatcher out on medical. We just had another dispatcher recently leave, and we have another dispatcher out on maternity. So our dispatchers have been working probably 16 hours a day for certain periods of time. So right now, we're shorthanded. So with my officers being trained for the desk, they have been sitting in recently on shifts here and there just to prevent burnout from the dispatchers. So they're trained. So I've had to fill some shifts. Thank God, I took some officers off other shifts, so I had more on those shifts, so it didn't cost me overtime at this point. But, at a certain time without the dispatchers, because right now I can have a fire dispatcher on to handle all the fire calls and the 911 calls, and I can have an officer answer the police calls and the walk-ins. That's what I've had to do for a couple of shifts on burnout-wise. Like I said, the dispatchers can handle the midnight shift alone, but on the day shift and the evening shift, they got to have someone handling the police side. So I think in the future, to prevent overtime issues, 1 to 2 officers I could supplement on different shifts, and that way it wouldn't require overtime.
Do you have anybody in the academy now?
Nobody at the moment. Technically, we're still down. I mean, if you're comparing, it's been great the last few years. We're able to put a few bodies on, which was good. We had to make some adjustments this year. When I took over, one of the first things I needed was an administrative assistant. So technically, instead of a police officer, I mean, we have an administrative assistant, which is a position we should have never lost. And it's a very vital position, and she's been great since we got her. So that took up some of, that money. So technically, that probably eliminated an officer spot that we were projecting going forward. So that's why we don't have anybody in the academy. But we're probably down at least 2-3 officers compared to, you're going back 97, 98 numbers. But
I remember a high of 26.
26, exactly. And we're at 24 right now. When I came on, it was 26. I came on at 97. I had a lot more hair then.
So
About 40 pounds later.
Oh, you too?
the study that was completed recently, and I'm sure you guys have talked to fellow chiefs in other towns, like, is there any concern the regional area doesn't know the town or know the landscape and?
So, I'll speak to that, no. And I'm gonna tell you why. So, we talked about this last night at the selectmen's meeting, and I asked one of the selectmen, I didn't really ask, I just said, nobody really knows where Vinton's Corner is anymore. Do you know where Vinton's Corner is?
No.
No. North Central and Pleasant is Vinton's Corner. So I learned that back in 1991 from David Toddy, who was on the fire department at the time. And back in those days, a long time ago, we could say, yeah, it's down by Vinton's Corner, or it's up by, there's been so many of them that have just gone away.
Like
I've had
Cotton
calls like
Gin,
by the big tree on Elm Street. Okay,
Dr. Bannerman's house.
right,
I mean,
things like that, or the Carver Cotton.
Those were the
Gin.
old days, but
Yeah.
The Carver Cotton Gin. So not only that, but the dispatchers that were hiring, they're not from East Bridgewater. Same thing with the firefighters. They're not from East Bridgewater. Would I love to hire residents? Absolutely. They need to apply. They need to be qualified. And if they're not, then you have to look elsewhere. So I think the days of, 3 houses down past the yellow one next to the big oak tree is over. And not to mention technology today, just with
technology's the big thing.
calling 911
I
on
mean,
your cell phone, it drops like where you are.
Right.
Then
into
what?
the,
And then
And
within
honestly,
meters.
and if anybody really wanted to take a tour, if you went down and look at our dispatch center, then you went over to it's amazing. I mean, you have the GPS, you have the technology, the multiple screens. So And that's the thing nowadays, the dispatchers we're hiring aren't from East Bridgewater. They have to learn the towns just like the dispatchers that over at the regionals have to learn the towns. It used to be years ago, like I said, when the officers sat at the desk or someone sat at the desk, they were from town, they knew the town, and the officers working knew the, so I mean, now it's, every new dispatcher we pretty much hire, except for some, that have been on for some time, they're not from the area either, and they have to learn just like they would go into a regional center.
That makes sense.
So, I mean, but the big thing is everything's right up on the screens nowadays, and with the technology, it's the big thing. And it can be pinpointed, so.
Okay.
If you really look at it, it's the direction that,
Well,
If you look at a map of the United States,
Yeah, we're like the
everywhere
small
else is
spot
pretty
that-
much regionalized, except for, and so we're finally catching on in this area.
Slowly.
Consolidation of technology, cost effective, I mean, it's just a lot of different things.
Any other questions? From a timing perspective, like where are you at in, I know you met with the selectmen yesterday, you're here today.
So they're waiting for us to meet with you tonight.
Okay.
Before they would enter into a intermunicipal agreement with Holbrook. I will say that time is of the essence. We were supposed to have a July 1st start date of 2024, which is next July, but 2 other towns had already signed IMAs, so that kind of pushed us back a little bit. I did call the director of Holbrook yesterday and said, "Guy, what can we do here?" So there is some wiggle room to move that date up closer to July 1st, but the big thing that he hinges upon is the same thing you're all hinging upon right now. Gotta do a budget. I can't do a budget unless I have an IMA. If I have an IMA, we know what's happening, I can budget for this. Without that paperwork, he can't do anything without that commitment that we're gonna do this.
And he hires personnel for each IMA they get signed, so he has to obviously budget that, hire personnel. Our goal is July 1, that's what we're going after, and that's the discussions we've had. It could go to the end of next year, could go to the end of,
Yeah, January 3rd.
January 1st or December 31st. But
So I would say, just from my own perspective, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. It saves money over the long term. It saves not just from the 5-year plan, but go forward if you do equate or calculate the anticipated personnel costs going up. The 2 things I think I'd want to understand is the cost of the added officers. So the different models that you said that you had, and Charlie, if we need to meet in executive session to talk about the union contract, I think that we need to do that too, just so we can understand what.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way to go. We were talking about this when I was on the board for crying out loud back in the early 2000s, late 90s, and at the time, it was actually more with Bridgewater and West Bridgewater and stuff, and there was not a consensus to do that at the time. But it does make sense. I've seen some of these regional centers, and they work. So it makes it, it's a good idea, and I think we should explore it, personally. Knowing and keeping in our mind that we are potentially adding, if we have to add 2 officers, that 356 isn't 356.
Right.
But it's not 456.
Right.
So,
And it's 1 to 2, and like I said, I can give you some different options just to show what the projections would be. I mean, I have moved around, but what I had to do is, I don't want to take officers off the street, and, I'd have to take, 1 or 2 bodies off the street without hiring anybody, and that's, I wouldn't like to do that on certain shifts.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Things, we're only getting busier, I hate to say it, we're not getting less, there's a little old East Bridgewater, I mean, we do a good job on it, we're pretty proactive, but obviously, people read the newspaper and see it on the news, I mean,
We're not a small
we're
town.
very proactive, but we're a lot busier than people realize. And our police officers, I could speak on the police department, if you look at Plymouth County, calls for service, I could give you all the numbers, we're the second busiest in Plymouth County besides Brockton, for calls for service. People don't realize that. I've been putting it out there the last couple of months, some of the calls for service and the amount of work the guys and gals do down there. We keep pretty busy.
Would we be interested in a motion to support this?
So I would say, I mean, I just want to, I personally want to understand if there's any further budget impact due to the contract negotiation that's currently in place,
on
or
this
the
356.
unionization. Because the dispatchers have requested to unionize. They're not sold yet, but we can't talk about it in public.
So so we're clear, they are unionized.
They did unionize.
Or there's a contract.
They
I'm
are
sorry,
union.
here, yeah.
Right.
We are in.
We've been in
But
discussions.
if we
are
do
in
this,
contract
they
negotiations.
move under A-Track, right? They're not employees of the town of East Bridgewater.
No, if we go, they would,
It's the end.
that would be the end of the, yeah, that would be end of the union.
Some of them may transfer.
Transfer.
over, and they'd be in that contract there, not our contract.
Right.
Once
Okay.
we close the dispatch operations, the contract also closes here.
They would be offered positions over there, but it wouldn't be a part of the union. It wouldn't be like a union position. They would be a part of A-Trek,
So I
which they
guess-
have a phenomenal contract.
Yeah. So, I mean, if somebody can, is there potential that there's additional costs that haven't been shown to us? We say we're done with civilian dispatch. They get the potential to have jobs offered to them. They choose not to. Is there some type of severance that,
Again, that's part of what we would go into.
Okay.
executive session.
that's what I think we just have to understand so that we know that, you know, this shows $1.2 million savings over 5 years, which is good. We have to add in then hiring 1 to 2 officers, and if there's a I just think we need to know that, what the full scope of it is before we,
Yeah.
I don't know what anyone else thinks.
I mean, just a ballpark, it's like I said, the average is 75 to 100, looking at, you know, what an officer would make with incentives based on degrees and the hundreds on the high end. So you're talking 150 to 200, so you're looking at. So obviously,
See, I wouldn't look at really saving 1.2 million, because we don't ever save.
exactly.
I agree.
Expenses pick up every which way
Yep,
loose, you know? The only thing is, I'm concerned a little bit about the timing.
Agreed.
If we're gonna make it happen. We do have an understanding there'd be 1 to 2 officers at a maximum of, say, 175 to 200. So, I don't know.
They could do it on their end, I mean, and that's the thing, they move pretty quickly, timing-wise. And like I said, I think once you have a further discussion with Charlie about everything else, a lot of it makes sense. Realistically, we were, July 1 was gonna be the date, pretty much.
But the Board of Selectmen are waiting for our response to this first?
We had discussions with them last night, and we decided to wait until after tonight to get back to them on the IMA, that we have to get back.
Maybe we go into executive with Charlie, and if we
Yeah,
feel
that's what I
deem it
think.
appropriate to vote afterwards, we will,
That's what I'd recommend.
Makes sense.
Okay.
right?
Would that happen tonight?
No,
You
because it's not on
can't,
the
you
agenda
can't do
that way.
executive session tonight?
We'd have to have it on the agenda to go into executive session to talk about the dispatch contract.
Okay.
Rules.
Good thing you're here, Charlie.
Sorry, public.
So we can set up an additional meeting to go into executive session to discuss the regional dispatch, and then, the selectmen aren't meeting again until,
They said that they would have a,
We might have a
Special.
special meeting.
they would do
Special.
a special meeting for us,
Okay.
even if it was over Zoom.
okay.
Only because time is of
Just-
the essence, and
and
they're heading
technically-
into the holidays there.
There's other municipalities looking at it. To them, it's first come, first serve on the IMAs, pretty much, because they're encouraged to get as many municipalities as possible. So that's why, they didn't have to do their budget, it's just, that's why this,
Yeah,
time is
no,
of the
That
essence.
makes sense. Okay, well, we'll figure out a date. We can come up with a date tonight to meet again. Can we do an executive over virtually, Charlie?
Yes.
Okay. So that'll make it
That'd be
easier.
great, yeah.
Yeah, we can fit that in real quick.
Awesome.
Great.
Any other questions for the chiefs?
I think it sounds great, and leveraging technology is gonna be
Makes a lot of sense,
a
yeah.
benefit, because that's only gonna increase, so we'll have a budget savings there you probably haven't even built in.
Absolutely.
We looked into it hard. I made a lot of phone calls on it as well. I mean, I don't want to set myself up for failure either, so it's a win-win. It makes sense in a lot of ways.
I mean,
And you're gonna
you-
see it within 3 to 5 years anyways. Everyone's gonna be going that way, and I think it's to get ahead of the curve as opposed to trying to get in somewhere, because they can only take so many municipalities at a certain time, and, you know, I don't wanna be on a waiting list.
Right.
Well, one of the things we're, you know, I'm kind of afraid of is if we don't do this, eventually state 911's gonna say, you are doing it, and your dispatch center is gonna be in Mansfield or whatever. At least
Now you
Holbrook's-
have a choice.
At least Holbrook's close by, and we're kind of dictating how this goes,
And you have a
rather than somebody
relationship.
else telling us how
Yeah.
it's gonna be.
Yeah.
So, it just makes sense all around, but I'm biased.
Thank you for your time, though. If you
you.
need anything else, Simon, I don't know if you need anything else on our
I
end.
don't think so. I think we just have to understand that one last piece, and then we
Yep.
can move forward.
I think once you hear that
Yeah.
piece, it'll make more sense as well.
Okay,
All right.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, so review the timeline for the special town, annual town meeting. So, notification to department heads happen on December 4th. Budgets are due from all departments on January 11th, which gives us January and February to have finance committee and select board budget hearings. So we'll get into that whole rotation of meeting a little more frequently and reviewing the budgets. The week of April 15th is when the annual and special town meeting warrant will be closed and approved by the select board, so we need to have everything done. Ideally, it would be great 2 weeks before then. We say that every year, and I'd like to hopefully be done by April 1st, so we're not cramming meetings in last minute. With the annual and special town meeting to happen on May 13th. So with that said, I don't think there's a lot that we have to do between now and January 11th. Some of the smaller departments, if we have time, between now and then, we could start to have our liaison meetings. But I did want to go through and determine who was going to be the liaisons for each department. So, and Karen's not here tonight, but we'll put her on some. So
Well, you know what they say, they told me on the way in, if you're not here,
that's right.
beware.
That's right. Get 'em all.
Do we know who did them from this year? Like, does everyone remember who they met with? And
I remember
would it
who
make
I had.
sense- Yeah, would it make sense to stay with some of those?
We can. I mean,
know you
it's
guys had
it's
a lot,
actually
but-
probably one of the first times we haven't had tremendous turnover in the committee. So it does create. I don't know that I have. Hold on the list.
Yeah, I have it somewhere, but I don't have it on my handy dandy lap.
Well, you want to just quickly go through the departments?
Let me see if I real quick. Excuse me. Have the.
So Dan, when were the budgets, when are the budgets due? What's,
January 11th.
okay, thank you.
I don't think I kept it from last year. So we can just quickly go through. So remember, the smaller departments, we only need one person. The big five, we need two on each. So this one's a generally easy one, town accountant.
I think I did that last time.
Okay,
Melanie?
yes.
Yep.
Assessors,
I think I did that with, did I do that with Dan?
not with me. We did school
I
together.
mean with Dave, I'm sorry.
With Dave. Did you do assessors with Paula last year? Okay. Okay. Good keeping it?
Sure.
Okay. Building and planning,
I'd add them.
IT,
I did IT.
you did IT, okay. Oh, that's right, yes. Fire department, we need two.
I've done the fire and police.
I think, did Karen do?
Karen
fire?
did fire.
Karen-
I think.
Karen Gilman
Yeah.
did.
She did, that's right.
And did you
Right,
do
she did it.
police? George?
We did it jointly.
And
Yeah,
George
I
did
did.
police with you, right?
I didn't actually, but I was scheduled to.
Okay.
We had conflict.
We'll try it again
I'll
this year
try,
then.
yeah.
Okay. Library.
I did library.
Okay. DPW was myself and Karen, right? Yep. Treasurer collector.
That was me as well.
Do you want to do that again? Do you want?
Yeah, I think I did treasurer, collector, and the admin.
Clerks?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think I
okay.
did all of them together.
Okay. Well, we'll put them down to make sure no one has too much. You have a lot. School department was myself and Lisa. Veterans, Dave. Council on Aging, that might have been me. I think it was me. Conservation,
I did the Board of Health.
actually, we'll have Karen Gilman do that one. She only has one other one right now. Historical Commission, I'll have Karen do that one. Rec Commission,
I think you and I did that one.
did we?
I think so.
It only needs one person. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think last year you guys were kind of tutoring us, so we had.
Yeah.
Oh,
all
that's
of
true.
them.
That is true. That's a fair
Yeah.
point. Yep. Okay. Board of Health.
I think I did that with Dave.
Yep.
Okay. Let me save this one. Save as.
Planning and building.
Yeah, we assigned you to that one. So the only current.
IT and EBCAM.
Oh, EBCAM, that's right, we need to,
I'll do that with rest, because I have to do some for capital for them.
okay.
And IT?
IT was Karen.
Okay.
So Karen, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Heard.
6, which is a lot.
I'll happily hand off one or two.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
There were a few that kind of went together, but otherwise,
So it makes sense to do, you have town admin, treasurer collector,
an accountant.
and accountant. I think that makes sense. We should have somebody else do town clerk.
I can do that if you want.
Okay. Schools, veterans. Dave, you're good. You have quite a few, too. You have EBCAM, veterans, police, fire, building. Is that too much?
And
Or?
Board of Health, veterans. No, because I'm getting them all together.
Okay, all right. All right, that sounds good. Everyone else, good? Do you want more?
I'm fine, yeah.
You have, so we have, for George, you have Board of Health,
Library and police.
Library, and
Police.
Police. Oh, that's good, because police is a big one, and libraries, you're on that one by yourself, so I think that's good. I think we have it split up. Okay. All right, so I will send this to Karen,
Thank you.
and we can get it sent out with the minutes. Okay, that is done. We went through the timeline, so again, we can start to reach out. I don't know how far department heads would be in their budgeting process with holidays and things like that. I would say on the bigger ones, it's probably a good idea to at least get on the calendar for like that week right after January 11th. Because we want to have our individual meetings, and then we'll have a meeting in early January to set up a timeline for department presentations. Okay. And then the last thing, just the So just so everyone's aware, and I think I forwarded this email, but I'll share it again. The guidance that was given. So capital plans, they wanted to have updates to Melanie when the operating budgets were submitted, so that'll handle capital. The costs for personnel are based on union contracts, so they should be handling those in that way. And then we've asked for, I'm not seeing it in here, it's level service, right, Charlie?
Right, but with the label very frugal in the sense of,
Right.
obviously, for the personnel costs, you put in exactly what the contractor, without any additional increases. So if it's a non-union person who doesn't have a contract, you don't put anything in. If you got a union contract, we got steps or whatever, then you follow that, but you don't say, well, I think this person should get a certain, this amount of money other than what's in the contract. Don't put in for additional personnel, don't put in for additional hours. For the non-personnel expenses, I've said, look, level fund those. On the side, you can ask for additional money, but you're gonna have to provide that, an explanation in the narrative.
Okay. Okay. Any questions on timeline, or it's pretty standard from what happened last year, but, okay, the last thing I think we have to talk through would be, availability for a virtual meeting to discuss, the intermunicipal agreement and the negotiation of the contract with the dispatch union. And we have to post 48 hours, we need 48 hours notice to hold that. Do you have any time off coming up, Charlie?
Not planned, no.
Okay. You're critical to this meeting. Daytime, does daytime work?
Daytime, evening, 6 o'clock, don't matter. It's
Yeah.
6 o'clock, everybody's
Depends
good.
on the day.
Okay.
what Time,
Yeah, same, right now,
Yeah.
my work life is crazy.
like a 4 o'clock meeting would work better, I think, than most days.
Yeah, if we're gonna do it virtual 4 o'clock. Yeah, we can do it over Teams. So if,
Depends, well, so I have 4 o'clock meetings right now.
okay,
Yeah, I'm booked until like 5 o'clock for the rest of the week anyway.
okay.
So we could, 6?
I could do 6.
So we can't, the earliest we could meet with 24 hours posting would be Friday. I don't really wanna do a 6 o'clock meeting on Friday.
I'm actually heading to New Hampshire at 12 on
Okay.
Friday.
So how about Monday, the 18th?
That works.
I could probably do 5.
Okay.
5:30?
Well, 5:30 is probably safe.
5:30?
Est. It's hard to
I'm
say
gonna
right
be
now.
here, but I may be slightly involved. It's the town hall holiday party evening,
Oh, okay.
the 18th of Monday, December. And I'll be here in the building.
Do we wanna meet in person?
But
I don't, Monday, I don't know if I can make it here by 5. I'll be in Boston till 4, at least.
Is the holiday party in this room?
Yeah, it's either here or it's downstairs, it's one or the other. I have to check with the rest of the folks.
Can we get together Friday morning
I
sometime?
think it's up here because we got more tables up here.
I mean, I'm actually off on Friday, so I could do it virtually Friday morning, if that, we could probably get this accomplished in half an hour, don't you think, Charlie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do Friday morning at 10.
Okay.
Or before 8. I can't even.
Right, Friday?
I'm working every night till 9.
Friday at 10 works for me
Yeah,
as well.
that works for me too.
Okay, so Friday at 10, we'll have Rebecca post a meeting. The 2 agenda items will be executive session to discuss the contract negotiation, and then secondly, to entertain a potential vote on the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Holbrook. So 10 a.m. on Friday. Okay. post that, we'll get that done. Okay, any other questions or topics? Not, I would entertain.
We have an open position on the board.
Oh, we still do have an open position, yes. Anyone's.
Well, I'm out of friends, so.
I have a new friend. No. Who was asking me about it, actually, so.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's interested, if they want to send a letter of interest into the Board of Selectmen's office, we can definitely have them scheduled for a meeting. That would be great.
Okay,
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
make a motion.
I'll second the
by
motion.
Dave, second by Lisa. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.